What is the crack? Welcome to a belated track guide video. Sorry about the delay, guys. I've had people messaging me left, right, and centre. I had a stag party. I've had two sick kids. I've got lots of stuff going on, so hopefully this is on time for some of you guys. We're going to dive straight into it, and we'll do one hot lap where I try to talk through it as best as possible. Then we'll slow it down, go into the different corners, see where I brake, where I slow down, all that kind of stuff, and which ones I think are important. Then we're going to look into racecraft a little bit, although I'm toying with the idea of dropping the racecraft section and maybe just highlighting it while I'm going through the broken down laps. If you think that's a good idea, give me a comment below. And finally, setup. I've done my best with setup. I've asked for advice on setup. Nobody really knows what's going on. You see I've no livery on the car, hasn't been assigned on the server. This is a new car. For all intents and purposes, an updated version of one that we've done before. I don't have any setups for it. And new championship, so people are trying hard. And I want to do a track preview for you guys, or a track guide where I actually set a good lap, and I really struggled to break into the top 10, but here's my quickest lap so far. Also, before any of you comment, I refuse to remove the halo. It's part of the car. I know you can turn it off, but I'm not going to turn it off. So let's go. Maybe I should turn down the audio just a touch on that engine because it's a bit loud. There we go. So as I always say, the last chicane, super important. Going to turn 12, last corner. In this corner, all I do is lift off. I'll go into more detail. All I do is lift off slightly. I actually never fully come off the power. Brake as soon as you see the curb here, down to 4th gear. Carry lots of momentum. Super important. You want speed here. Have faith in your aero. I have a fairly high aero setup. Have faith in your aero here. Curb on the right. Brake in the straight line. And I could have probably gone quicker there, and I know a lot of people are being extremely generous with track limits there. I didn't want to, for the purposes of this track guide especially. Slightly late apex here, probably could have done better, a little bit unsettled. Again, on the curb I was a little bit unsettled, slight wobble of oversteer, but I still made up enough time in the first sector to make this my best lap so far. So I want you guys to see that even with a mistake, a consistent lap will actually do quite well here. So coming up to turn 10 now into the chicane, brake at the 100, down into 3rd gear, grab a bit of this curb and get on the power early. See, when we actually break it down, you'll see how early we get on the power, and that crest can be a little bit tricky for some. You don't want to break traction there. We're going to go into the more detailed lap now. So fast. Now we'll see the markers on the side. We've got the 200 here, we've got the 100. I go all the way past the first cone, so I'm still fully planted. You see the green bar here, and even after a couple of cones, I only just back off the throttle. You see, I never go on to 0 throttle. I'm sure with a slightly higher aero setup, you can maybe even keep that planted, and maybe that's how the guys are doing 108s and 109s. Probably is, but I haven't found that killer combination yet. So power through, try and get back over to the right slightly because you want a decent line coming into this little chicane at the top. As soon as you see the curb on the left, you want to get on the brake in a straight line, 4th gear to the right. So I've changed my gear slightly. I'm sharing my setup in the description below, and I'll explain in the setup section what exactly I changed. Flat to the mat here, try to get a decent line. I've raised my suspension quite a lot so that it doesn't bottom out there. This is a difficult corner. You don't want to get too far onto that curb. This car hates curbs. So brake in a straight line. You even see I probably could have braked even harder there, but I want the balance. And when I turn in, I didn't want to be trail braking there because I want the balance of the car settling again coming out of that corner. You can, and people do, go a lot wider there. That green and gold area is legal runoff. But I just didn't want to do it for the purpose of this track guide. Late apex here. This is actually a surprisingly important corner. You've got the 100 on the left hand side. Brake just before that, and give that more steering than you want. This is one of the things that I kind of realized with this car, especially when you're on a hot lap. Steering slightly more. It will bite. It will get you through. I haven't touched the camber settings. Maybe that would help. Slightly late apex, probably could have been tighter there, a little bit of a wobble. That wobble actually led to this mistake. I was a little bit unsettled, I was in wrong track position. I was already facing the corner here, I would have liked to be facing the outside of the corner. Hard on the brake down to second gear. You don't want to exit like this. That's not part of the guide. That sucks. Straight up the straight, fast. Turn 8 and 9, non-existent turns. I've maxed out my gearing so that I'm almost redlining in 6th. Maybe quicker with less gears, maybe less gear changing, I'm not sure. I brake at the 100. See the 100 on the right hand side? I brake at that sign, hard, turn into 3rd, so it's actually somewhat of a trail brake. So still braking hard, and well, it's a little bit of a trail brake. I'm still braking as I turn in, but to balance the car I come out of it. Now, you want to, if you keep an eye on the green bar. So the green bar is my accelerator, which is here. Keep an eye on how early that comes on. See, I'm already touching it coming out of here. So once I actually commit to the throttle here, even though it's not full throttle, I don't actually lift until turn 1. So look, more, turn in, and more. That's super important. You're going to find time there if you're struggling. Also, you probably noticed that my car doesn't do a big ramp here, or the front doesn't come loose. That's going to lose you time. Partly because I'm over on the right hand side, but also partly because I've stiffened my suspension and raised the car quite considerably. You'll see in the setup anyway. As you're coming under this bridge, keep an eye out for the yellow lines here for the pits. You want to pretty much go towards those. You want to go over those effectively. So the yellow lines on the pits. And then that's it. Easy as that. It only took me about 50 laps to get a lap like this together. Let's not go there though. I've been struggling a little bit to try and find really good pace, but 110.4, I'm not going to beat that. Even if I was doing qualifying, I don't think I'd beat that in quali. So alright, so let's dive into the next section. There really are, and I'm going to play a really fast lap. There really only are a couple of places where people are going to pass you out. Here obviously they're going to get beside you, but you're going to slow yourselves down if you get in a tussle here. So I would wait for people to make mistakes. I know that's against the principle of racing. Wait for people to make mistakes there. Keep behind them, and especially if you know you have a quicker run out of corners, this is the corner where you're going to start making some progress. You want to really get a run here, and if you can get beside them here, get the inside, you'll definitely be able to force them wide. They'll know you're there. As long as you're more than halfway up the inside of their car, obviously don't dive bomb people, but if you're already alongside them before they brake or turn in, you have every right to be there. And even if you look at this, it probably is a bit tight, but I'm wide enough for a car to be pushing up the inside, and I still make quite a quick corner there. So what I'm trying to say, I guess, is if a car does come up your inside, don't be afraid to just let them through and follow them, go into their slipstream. Be a little bit careful of dirty air, but that should all work out. Here, don't do this. This is shit. If I was doing this in a race, fast guy behind me, they would be just gone. They would be in my slipstream, get out, get in front of me, and I wouldn't get a chance to react. Especially with high aero. I'm running relatively high aero because I want to get out of those corners quickly into people's slipstream, and I want the slipstream to make up for people's lack of aero, and I want to be able to put on so much pressure that people start making mistakes. Once people with low aero start making mistakes, that's it. Obviously, coming out of that last chicane, very important as well. And finally, I'm just going to chat about the setup. You probably noticed that the default setup hits the ground loads. Always practice with loads of race fuel, because if you don't use your race fuel setup, you could actually if you don't practice loads on your race fuel setup, you could actually be causing a lot of issues for yourself when it comes race time, because this car hits the ground. I said to myself, you know, I'll practice a little bit and try with low fuel. It was still hitting the ground. I raised it up a huge amount, and stiffened the suspension a bit, extended the range of the suspension a bit as well, so that's the main thing. I'm running relatively high aero. I think it's like 20, 18 or something like that. 20 at the front, 18 on the rear. I tried with lower aero, and just for consistency's sake, if I'm passing people out, stuff like that, I really want to keep the car planted. Coming from the back of the grid is a marathon, not a sprint. If I was up higher and I really wanted to defend from the really super fast guys, I might go with a lower aero setup and hope for that to pay off. Other than that, not much changed. General rule of thumb with a lot of these mod cars is that the people who create these cars generally ship them with a decent all-round setup. So don't worry, it's not like the Kunos cars that are kind of tuned to be very like the real thing with a default base setup. These are really set up for the tracks that Kunos has available and the way that the Assetto Corsa plays. So that makes it feel more realistic, but you start with a very good baseline. So I tend to, in all these races, I tend to start from a very, very low baseline. Like in the next track, unless it's super bumpy, I'm going to start from scratch again with my setup, because I don't want the car to be this high. When it is lower, it's super planted. I was way faster in some sections of the track, but hey cat, he can't hear me. The cat is deaf. I never told you guys that. Nacho's deaf. Come here, dude. Come on, man. Come say hi. But yeah, that's kind of the track guide for this week. Again, apologies for the delays, guys. It's a little bit hectic in my life to be doing this kind of stuff, especially after, you probably noticed by my voice, I've got hangover voice. I'm broke and frail and tired and hungry, and somebody please feed me. Chat to you later, guys.